When you think of Reddit, what pops into your head? Probably memes, right? Or maybe some super niche hobbies. But what if I told you it's also one of the world's biggest focus groups and a surprisingly complex commercial ecosystem? Today, we're going to look under the hood of this incredible engine of conversation. Let's dive in.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going way beyond the memes to get to Reddit's core. Then we'll see how its communities actually get built, how big brands had to learn to listen, and how all that raw chatter gets turned into powerful data. And finally, we'll pull back the curtain on the machine that turns this entire community into commerce. So let's start by throwing out the idea that Reddit is just another social media site, because at its heart, it is built on one single, absolutely crucial idea: authenticity. And honestly, that changes everything. This one sentence, right here from a Carnegie Mellon analysis, this is the key to the whole kingdom. Everything that happens on Reddit, from how users act to whether a brand succeeds or fails, it all comes down to this one simple truth. People are there for a real connection, not to be sold something. And the scale we're talking about is just mind-blowing. Over 100,000 active communities, or subreddits, are buzzing with conversations about literally everything. Skincare routines, vintage cars, wild stock market bets. You name it, there's a subreddit for it. And that's what makes it home to some of the most honest, unfiltered talk on the entire internet.
Okay, so how does an ecosystem this huge even get built in the first place? Well, let's peel back that first layer and look at the basic building block of Reddit, the community that governs itself. You know, every single conversation on the platform happens inside one of these subreddits. The best way to think about it is like each one is its own little self-contained world. They're started by users, and they're run by volunteer moderators who get to set the rules and really shape the entire culture. And making a great subreddit doesn't just happen by accident, you know? It's a really deliberate process. A founder has to define a clear purpose, set up some rules, and get the ball rolling with some initial content. And then the real work starts, moderating, day in and day out to keep the place healthy. This whole system is built from the ground up, by the users, for the users. So if you've got all these user-run communities that absolutely hate being marketed to, how on earth do brands get involved? Well, turns out they had to learn the hard way, that to succeed, they couldn't just talk, they had to listen first. This slide basically lays out the tightrope that brands have to walk. The playbook is pretty simple, really. Listen, talk like a real human being, and always, always add value. But look at the don'ts list. It's pretty much a perfect summary of traditional advertising, which is exactly what the Reddit community is built to reject. Yeah, you just can't show up and start dropping links to your products. It doesn't work. The whole culture of Reddit forces companies to completely change their strategy. It's not about broadcasting a message out into the void. It's about earning your place in the conversation by actually being a part of it. But what if all this raw, messy, unfiltered conversation was actually more than just talk? Well, now it's being processed and analyzed on a massive scale, turning all those opinions into cold, hard, quantitative data. The way this is done is with a pretty cool technique called sentiment analysis. Basically, researchers are using some pretty sophisticated AI to read and understand the subjective stuff, the feelings, the opinions, the general vibe that's hidden inside millions and millions of Reddit comments. And here's what that looks like in the real world. This table comes from a financial study on the infamous r/WallStreetBets subreddit, and it shows different AI models trying to figure out what users are saying. Now check out that last comment. Any person can see it's dripping with sarcasm. The BERT tweet model gets it, labeling it negative, but ChatGPT gets it wrong. It just goes to show you how tricky and nuanced this stuff can be. But wow, when it works, the results are incredible. That same study found that a trading strategy based on Reddit sentiment outperformed a traditional buy and hold strategy by a staggering 84.4% during a bull market. That's literally turning unfiltered chatter into a predictive financial signal. It's wild. Okay, so now it's time to peel back that final layer. We've got these super authentic communities creating huge amounts of data. So how does this all become a business? Let's take a look at the very sophisticated advertising engine that actually monetizes this entire ecosystem. This number, right here, tells you everything you need to know about Redditors. They are researchers. An incredible 96% of users who see an ad and are interested don't actually click on it. Nope. Instead, they open a new tab and start digging, looking for real reviews and honest discussions in other communities. So, how do you reach these super motivated researchers? Well, advertisers have a whole toolkit at their disposal. They can target keywords happening inside conversations, aim for specific communities, or even retarget people who visited their website. They can even upload their own customer lists to find similar lookalike audiences on Reddit.
And this is how the whole platform adapts. Because users almost never click on the ad itself, the ad system is built to measure success in a totally different way. It doesn't just track who clicked, it tracks who saw an ad and then later made a purchase. It's a system designed from the ground up for this very unique kind of user. So, what a journey, right? We've gone all the way from these passionate user-run forums to a highly sophisticated data and advertising machine. And that brings us to our final and I think most important point. And this really is the central tension of the entire modern internet. Reddit started as a haven for authentic human connection. And it's that exact authenticity that makes its data so valuable and its audience so attractive to advertisers. As these two massive forces pull against each other, the question of what that authenticity is truly worth, well, that remains right at the very heart of the platform.